Hi, guys. I figured this podcast would be like us having coffee. I am so excited to update you on all the things that have been happening in our world, both personally and at Crawford Clinics, and all the things in our space, because I don't know about you, but a lot of times it feels like we're always waiting on something. And life can be like good little moments, and then you just like wait forever. It might be a relationship, it might be a degree, it might be waiting on a job or waiting on a promotion or waiting on that next vacation. Wherever you're at, I get it. I am like such a big dreamer, and I literally have a whole binder full of my ridiculous dreams, and they all have tabs, because I encourage you in your own wonderful way to have like visuals to represent every one of your dreams. Now, I have to warn you, because like all of us, you write the vision, you make it plain, you put the vision in front of you, but now you're going to go through the maturation process to be able to steward it. And so I love dreaming, but not so much the waiting and the maturing and the being pruned and life going the opposite direction for like a million years before it finally breakthrough. So just kind of bringing you into our story. I am from third generation entrepreneurs, real estate, and I am very proud of my grandpa that they were a part of the Oklahoma Dust Bowl, which means kind of during the Great Depression era, there was just starvation because the roots weren't deep enough. So the dust was blowing so badly that they couldn't take good roots for the crops. So farmers, which was my family lineage, they were starving to death. And I don't remember exactly. I think it was like 11 kids, biological 11 kids. And my grandpa was one of those little kids, probably undiagnosed dyslexic because he wasn't in school. And he was a farming kid, and they were just this big family, and everybody had to work to contribute. And this huge famine happened, and so they had to migrate from Oklahoma to California. There is a point to this. I promise I'll get to it. And so my grandpa's family moved to California, and I love, this is like a part of our family like culture that we say. So my grandpa Crawford is his name. He would go to job sites doing construction, and he's like a teenager, and they'd say, "Can you run a forklift?" And he'd be like, "I can do that." And of course he couldn't, and he would get fired, but he would be learning along the way. And he'd say like, "I can do that," because it was a mindset of I can do that, speaking it into existence. So I want you to think and reflect right now, are there mindsets that you jump to be critical, to analyze, to shut down opportunities instead of saying, "I can do that"? Just because I haven't done it yet, just because I may not be an expert, does not mean I cannot do it. So that's called growth mindset, that you believe before you even step into a situation that you are capable. You may not have that hard skill yet, but you know and you trust, I have decided ahead of time I can do that. Now, my grandpa got fired a ton of times, but along the way of getting fired, he was learning and he was pivoting. He was watching what others were doing, and he was loosely getting mentored by all these bosses that were trying to run job sites until he started doing his own construction and he started doing his own thing. A big part of having a growth mindset is you are constantly learning. You're aware that you're probably not good at lots of things. My grandpa, for real dyslexic, undiagnosed back then, right? But now I would know that's true. Literally lots of limitations. He had no education. He was a farming kid from Oklahoma, moving to California and trying to figure out his way in construction because it's either get a job or starve to death. And they didn't have public service the way we do today. So that growth mindset, that hunger or chutzpah to push past obstacles. Don't let getting fired or you put your resume out and it doesn't get responded to. Don't let that stop you. Go to the networking group. Try to reach out. Be in the right circles. Let a no be fuel inside of you to keep going. Third, I would say now look for mentorship. Nobody at that time was mentoring my grandfather, but he would look at what they did and he would learn, do this, don't do that. Oh, they use these words. They come across this way. So he got into construction and actually did really well in California in construction. And so my dad, who was really great at football and really strong athlete, he ended up getting hurt, I think like junior, senior year. And so he kind of stepped away from football in high school and really leaned into construction. So by 14 years old, he is piling sheetrock. He is running on these job sites, learning everything he can. He's being mentored. He has a growth mindset. And again, undiagnosed dyslexic, not able to be a strong reader or do a lot of those practical things that you and I would limit ourselves. But because of a growth mindset, I can do that. And that's something in our Crawford family that I would love to share with you. Every family has culture. And I grew up with an entrepreneurial generations of people that are like, yeah, I may not be the best. I may not know how to do that, but I can do that. And I would love for you to borrow that mindset, borrow the belief that I can do that, even though I've never done it before, but it's possible. Again, I want you to think about ways that you're learning along the way. No is not final. And many times, even in negotiation, the first offer someone gives you, you always lean in and you ask for a better offer. Third, you're looking for mentorship along the way. So then my dad became really brilliant at construction. My parents did that for years. And I grew up in a construction family. And it has been amazing experience being this little girl who had entrepreneur parents, mom and dad, working in construction and running teams and all of that. As a little kid, I saw the work behind the scenes. And I was like, no, I don't have to learn business. I'm going to be an actress. And so I tried to not learn what they were teaching me. But I was really, in retrospect, being mentored by the best of the best people who are not the most trained, not the most qualified, but they had a growth mindset. They were teachable. They didn't take no as a final answer, and they were constantly being mentored and growing. So now I go into psychology. And I am way over here doing nothing in business. And one day, the weirdest thing, and this is where I'll ask you to do the same in your life, there may be these little subtle thoughts that pop into your mind. I had a subtle thought of like, man, Paris Hilton, and this is nothing against her, please don't take it out of context. It's just this happened to be the thought that popped to my head. Paris Hilton, unfortunately, at that time, 15, 20 years ago, was famous for sex tapes. While I think her name is Ivanka Trump. And this is way before politics or anything with the Trump family. Just the contrast that Paris Hilton was not stewarding the legacy in that season of her life of what her parents had built in business. While Ivanka Trump, apparently at that point, I don't even follow celebrities, so I knew these thoughts did not originate with me, that she was really growing in business and learning and allowing what she was learning through her dad, through business, to be a life skill, and she was thriving in that. And I felt this loving rebuke of you are not being a good steward of what your parents have accrued in business, that mindset, that culture, that chutzpah, to not allow a no to be a final answer, but to get back up and keep going. And so I wrote in that dream binder, I have a little tab, and I said, I will own a business. Now that was very resistant because that was not part of my fluffy dreams of being a psychologist, owning a practice, all those things. And so down the road, I felt myself, and think about it in your life, these moments where it's almost like they call it your baby leap or your heart leap. And I was kind of like, oh my gosh, I would love to do real estate. So I would walk around these big building complexes and they're being developed. And I would be like, wow, God, one day I want to develop real estate. But I'm looking at my current life where I'm a doctor. I'm a clinical psychologist. I see patients. I work for other practices. I don't want to run my own business. None of that sounds good. And I definitely have no capacity, bandwidth, experience, training in real estate. but I went ahead and wrote it down. So another tab became, I'm going to be a real estate mogul, I think. If anything, I highly encourage you to be kind of over the top like me. I said I would be a business mogul and a real estate tycoon, I think is what I wrote down. And I find that entertaining. I don't feel like I have to go like run and make that happen tomorrow. I just put it in my dream binder, I pray over it, and then I move on with my real life right now. So about a decade ago, so I've owned Crawford Clinics as of this recording, 12 and a half, almost 13 years. And about a decade ago, I was like, okay, I don't want to squander what my parents have built. So I'm going to go to my accountant and have him make me an LLC business, a DBA, for my real estate ventures. Right? And for 10 solid years, nothing has happened with that business. In fact, I switched accountants. And so the government was sending like, you need to have a filing of some sort for a zero entity. It didn't own anything. And so we actually lost the LLC. And last year we reinstated it with a new accountant. So I have a real estate business for 10 years, just believing kind of passively, not even like super taking charge. And then the end of 2022, December 31st, out of the blue, I got a text message from someone I really trust. I'll say her name, Wendy Rich. And I really respect her a lot. And she didn't know what was going on. She doesn't necessarily know my dreams. And she said, I see you doing a ribbon cutting and you're taking ownership of a new enterprise. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is it. So like you get a message, you're excited, or maybe somebody's prayed over you, or they spoke into your life, or you had a nighttime dream or a vision, and you're like, okay, let's run. So then the next 23 months, nothing happened. Opportunity would come and then it would just kind of fall through, to the point that disappointment had really set in. And this I can do it girl was starting to get really weary, and I didn't even want to look at buildings anymore, because in that 10 years of when I started to look to when we actually started moving forward with that goal, things have tripled and quadrupled in value here. So what would have been, let's say, a $600,000 building is now a $1.5 million building. And I've been scaling and trying to grow Crawford Clinics and hire people. And if you've ever run a business, you know that actually usually lowers your profit margin initially. So financially, the last 2 years, as we're growing the infrastructure of the business, my income has been going down while I'm trying to like steward a team and be stretched in really being a business owner and not just a solopreneur and a psychologist, but actually scaling and growing the business of Crawford Clinics. And so now we're looking at all these buildings, but it's like disappointment after disappointment. And in your own life, you may have some long-term dreams, and it may hurt to even brush those off the shelf and allow some of that dust to be removed. And I want to say that I see you. I know exactly what that feels like. There are long-term processes and promises in multiple areas of my life that I've been waiting on. And I would tell you, I would say about 12 years, my life has just felt like when David got prayed over, if you know the part in the King's stories, that he got prayed over, you're going to be king. And then it was like the next decade or longer, his life was miserable. He was driven into the wilderness. His mentor, Saul, is like being mean to him and trying to like hurt him. Like his reputation is ruined. He's having to like go live with foreigners who hate him. He's having to act like he's a crazy person just so people don't kill him. He gets a little team, and then his team even turns against him and wants to kill him. It has felt, not as dramatic, but it has felt. My feelings feel very similar. So if you're like, at some point, I thought this was where I was going. I thought this was my vision, but everything feels the literal opposite. I would say you are in a beautiful pruning and preparation season. And I love the quote that says, if you faint not, you will reap a harvest. And now I feel like I've finally come into that season. This last year was really hard on multiple fronts, lots of delayed promises while I'm helping others fulfill their promise and cheering them on and encouraging them. And maybe that's you. Maybe you've been the positive one, the encouraging one. You've helped others. Maybe you've been a parent and you have supported your kids' dreams and you just feel like yours are on the shelf. I see you and you're not alone. And it is worth it. I promise you it is worth it. That when the promise is released, now the trials will come into your life to prepare and equip you so you can steward the promise. You don't want to be destroyed when you get up the mountain of your influence and you get that marriage or that job or that position, that degree, or that amount of financial prosperity and then be destroyed by it. So if you have a long-term perspective that I can do this, I can walk through this trial, I can walk through this delay, I can worship even in the delay. If you get back up, now it doesn't mean we don't fall. And it doesn't mean that you have to do it alone. You get people and they believe with you. And then you allow those words of encouragement to start breathing life into dead places where your heart feels so dry and depleted. I want to speak life and resurrection power into your dreams right now. There is purpose that you're on this planet at this exact time. Your gifts, your talent, your treasure, your life experience, it matters. You matter. And everything that disqualifies you, in your weakness, his strength is made perfect. So there's lots of things that you could look at me and say, she should never be running a business. She should never be a psychologist. She's got so many blah, 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 whatever disqualifiers. And yes, I would agree with you. But I can do this means I stay in the fight long enough to allow our rough edges to get worked through, to allow immature places to be matured, to allow the pruning so that then health comes out of us. If you faint not, you will reap a harvest. And so back to our story. I had 2 years where it was just delay, delay, delay. And the January of last year, I was praying and fasting, starting the year, doing vision, writing down. And, being a dreamer, I can write lots of things, but it's like, who knows what's going to actually happen? I had forgotten what I wrote. And so life happened, delays. And in December, I was on a girls' trip. And my dad has really championed my dreams. And it's been really sweet. Since my mom went to heaven, I just feel like the Lord has used him in a really beautiful way to help build and restore and redeem some things that have been heartache in my life. And maybe in your life, you're wondering, I didn't recognize it. But maybe this person is sent to help offset some of the sorrow or the loneliness or the struggle. Maybe this person is a champion or an encourager in my life. And so my father is my business partner, and he's like, hey, I think we should move on this building. And I'm like, did you hear from God? Do you have a strategy? You have a plan? How do we know? Like way too in my head, like a novice. And he's like, Shannon, let's move forward. And if it's not the right thing, then we'll sell it. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's not like it's a life or death decision, right? Sometimes when we're novice at something, we put way too much of our stakes, right? Like it feels like such a big decision, right or wrong. Is it God's will or not? Instead of, hey, make the next right decision. We did not hear God. There was no booming voice. There was no fire that was telling me to go this direction. It was just a simple obedience, one step after another, and there was so much peace. It literally feels like there's just like this red carpet that God is pouring out before us. And so I was like, okay, let's go. I'm super scared. I don't think I'm, can financially afford this building, but let's give it a shot. And so I imagined handing the responsibility to Father God. And I literally felt this anxiety just leave my body of having to figure out all the details. Now, that doesn't mean I eat bonbons and watch soap operas all day, which I don't do that anyway, but the analogy, it means I'm emotionally handing that responsibility to God. And when he is holding that and stewarding that, now I get to be a partner. It gets to be collaboration. There's a fun, there's a carefree, a relational, where I hand the burden, I hand the finances, I hand the stress and the marketing strategy to him. And then now I get to be Shannon again. So in your own life, recognize areas where you might have picked up a lot of responsibility for your goal to happen. Whether it's your business, you need to strive, do your networking, make sure everybody knows about you, try to work all these insane hours. It's unnecessary and it will burn you out. But if you can start to imagine, hey, this is my dream to have this degree, to have this kind of a marriage or children, or this kind of a business, or this level of influence in social media or television or film, wherever your dream is, imagine right now just surrendering it, releasing it to Father God. God, I want to be your partner. I don't want to have to strive and carry it because it'll burn me out. And then now you get to enjoy it. You get to partner with him. And I've found it really helpful. I have at least an hour of silence every morning. Now, not every, right? But it's a priority. It's a big rock in my life that the first hour of the day is silence, where I get to just be present. I get to let God pour refreshing in. And how many times we're trying to knock it off the checklist. We're trying to check email. We're trying to read our Bible. We're trying to be focused and not just letting God pour in. I absolutely read my Bible and I journal and I process, but I want to take time to put the oxygen mask on me. And I would highly encourage you to do the same because you're not on a sprint. You're in a marathon. To truly fulfill the full expression of all that God has for you is a marathon. And if you're willing to do the due diligence of daily faithfulness, just like a Division I athlete or a professional athlete, it's the day-to-day practice, rehearsal, and maintenance that makes you excellent. And when you can do that, now you show up on the field and you're ready. You are tight, you're toned, you're ready, you've practiced this. And so, we had a lot of delay, and then my dad is like, let's go, let's execute. And he's pushing for December 23rd. And I'm like, well, I don't know. I have a CD that my money is tied up until it matures. I'm going to get a penalty. I don't want to take that out. And he's like, well, just take the penalty. It has to close. And I was like, oh my gosh. And so I call Marcus at Frost Bank. I told him I would give him a shout out, Marcus at Frost Bank. And I'm like, this money is earmarked for my real estate company. Is there any way you would waive the penalty? And Marcus, it was only like 3 to 5 days, but he waived it. And I'm so grateful. So yay, Frost Bank, that he graciously helped us not have penalties. We were able to close on December 23rd. And then I looked back at when that text message was written, and it was 23 months to the day. 23 months. On the 23rd, we're closing. And then the year before, the 2024, I had been in business class, which is like poking my eye with a strong object because I wanted to do media last year. I wanted to do travel. I want to do fun. I want a happy year. And last year, I don't know about you, it was like diligence and faithfulness and obedience and doing the responsible, unfun thing for a whole year. And then December felt like all the fun came into my life. If you haven't seen our social media, we posted a lot from our New York girls trip, and a lot of really fun stuff happened in December. And so that day on the 23rd, I opened the mail and I see that I got my certificate of passing my business class. And the Lord had said 2 years prior, he said, you're in CEO training. And so I felt like the Lord's like, you were faithful, you trusted me, you obeyed. Whoa, I'm getting emotional. And so you graduated, and I'm proud of you. And on the same day that I opened my certification of graduation, that the Lord is so proud, and he's giving this building from my Father, right? So like symbolically, God will do things in your life that it represents something. And so to have my earthly father support that. And I'm sensitive to sharing that part of the story because I know some of you don't have dads, or you don't have a supportive dad, or maybe abuse. And so I'm very tender to that. But I also know that God will redeem those painful places and he can use someone else. You know, I've missed my mom in this because she was a brilliant businesswoman. And I've wished she would be a part of this area of my life. And I wish that I would be married and my husband could be a part of this part of my story. And so there's elements of grief and sorrow amidst the sweetness of our lives. But I will say this, it dawned on me that I've had this 80-something-year-old beautiful woman intercessor has just come into my life, and she loves me and she prays for me and supports me and encourages me. And it dawned on me that I was like, it's not my earthly mom, but the Lord sent somebody to fill in the gaps. So as I'm sharing that my earthly dad has helped with this building, I want you to think about there could be other mentors, there could be other people in your circle that the Lord may tap on their shoulders. And even though it's not the one thing you thought you wanted, be grateful. And when you're grateful for what is, it's like it's opening your life to more good things. And he can trust you because you're grateful, and you'll be a good steward of what he gives you, and you can be trusted with more. And so on the day that it's 23 months from the promise, on the 23rd, I'm opening my certification, getting my building. And on that day, I looked up, what does 23 represent? And it just came up, Psalm 23. And how sweet to know that the Lord is our good shepherd and he's going to walk with us. And it just provided such reassurance because, again, it's a big, hairy, audacious goal. And in your life, there's big, hairy, audacious goals, and you can get it, but then end up losing the joy of it because you pick up the responsibility, the fear, the anxiety, the self-sufficiency. And so I felt like from the beginning, the Lord was letting me know, I will be your good shepherd. I'll provide, I'll take care of you, you're fine. And it's been funny when people have tried to insert their fear and anxiety and budgets and worry about money and all these things. And I just feel this peace over my heart that I know for a fact, a decade ago, less mature, wonky me, no way could I have stewarded that. No way could I have probably a year ago. And yet now I feel ready. And doesn't mean life's not going to happen, right? But there's a calm and there's a quiet that happens when you've gone through the maturing. And he said, your trials are working out a far greater work of glory, that they're working out a maturity and a completeness. So then you're ready to stand. And so in your own life, as we've been waiting for things, please celebrate every big moment. And please stay faithful when there's a delay and the doubt and the unbelief creeps in like it's never going to happen. I'm an idiot. Who do I think I am? Somebody's better than that. I can't be doing that. Write the vision. Make it plain. Be faithful during the trials. Be mentored along the way. Get in the circles where people are doing the things. And watch, learn through osmosis, and sometimes go to class, get a degree, get some kind of training, or get therapy, right? Move some of those internal blocks out of the way. I've had coaching and therapy. I highly recommend it for you as well, because you want to move as fast as possible and not keep cycling around the same mountain and it not ever getting better. We want to move through our issues, get upgraded so that we get to embrace the season of fruitfulness. After years of being pruned, like you, we're in this together, seasons of fruitfulness will come. So in this moment where my faith is just so encouraged, I want to impart faith into you. I want to speak blessing into you as a dreamer. I want to call forth the dreaming portion of your spirit that is childlike and believes anything is possible, that your limitations are opportunities for God to fill in where you're lacking, where you don't have all that it takes, but he does. Because, like my grandpa Crawford, I can do that. And when you know you can, because in your weakness, his strength is made perfect, now you're walking forward, even in obstacles. Everybody else falls back, normal human reaction. And you are now at the lead, innovating, moving forward, and advancing, taking territory. I love you. I love this community. The Lord said to really pray over our online community. So the joy in my heart for the next season will be really developing our online community. So the first quarter of this year, it will be focused on developing Crawford Clinics location. If you're ever in Texas, in Southlake, Texas, we have a brand new location. We're calling it the Coco Chanel #1 because we provide excellent luxury therapy experiences. So please come by, and we have an open house. So if you happen to be in the area, February 1st, 2025, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. It's an open invite. We would be honored to just welcome you into our space to build community and connection and collaboration ideas. We just would love seeing people on fire, living with purpose and intentionality. So if you have any ideas on how we can serve you individually or as a collective group, feel free to direct message or write it in the messages, comment section, because that's important to me, that this is something that is practically, actively engage and invest in you fulfilling the call of God on your life. We're here to support you, and it is our privilege. Thank you. Bye, guys.